What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac, and this is Labman EDH. Today, I got an interesting deck video idea for you. I got 4 deck builds around Spider-Man cards. But before I get started, what are your thoughts on this Spider-Man set? I'm a huge comic book guy, and I can't help but feel that this set has been rushed or something. Its power level is out of whack. It's very weak. Uh, some of the flavor doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't know. What's your thoughts? But I do want to say this. I know a lot of YouTubers go negative on Magic, and I think that's a valid thing to do. As fans, we choose what we believe. This is something we care about. So we have the right to dislike certain aspects. But I try to keep it positive. So I'm going to talk about things in this set that I like and make decks with them. That's what you're here for. You're here for my EDH deck ideas, not for my rants about comic stuff. So let's go ahead and just jump into these 4 decks. This first deck is built around Lizard, Connor's Curse. He's a 4 mana green legendary creature, lizard villain, has trample, and when he ETBs up to 1 target creature, loses all abilities, and becomes a green lizard creature with base power and toughness 4/4. Now, this is a transmutation ability on a stick, and it can target your creatures, but the decks I built actually want to target your opponent's creatures, making them 4/4s with no abilities. Now, when I was making this deck, it was in recording this, it was actually before he really had any decks on EDH Rec. But what I would imagine all the decks are going to do is blink him. Now, that's a pretty unique thing in green because green, I think, when I looked, only had 31 mono green blink decks. So that's pretty, I mean, that's almost nothing compared to other kinds of decks. Now, the way I'm going about this, I'll have 2 decks with the lizard as the commander. One's going to be a blink deck where we want to blink and copy him. But the first one is actually a green aristocrat style deck. Now, we're going to be sacrificing him and bringing him back, and that's how we're going to have him keep re entering. And green really doesn't have a lot of aristocrats either. So I figure it's going to be a pretty cool deck, and it's going to let us play cards you never see played in a commander game. But first, a quick lore tidbit. The lizard used reptile DNA to come up with his healing solution to replace his missing arm. However, it had an effect on his mind. You see that? That's like a common motif in Spider Man. Like, it's usually they were good people, then something happened, then they were bad people. Norman Osborn took the super serum formula, turned him crazy. Doc Ock made tentacles, turned him crazy, and it creates this dichotomy because Spider-Man doesn't want to hurt them because they're really a nice person, but they're being evil now. He has to hurt them. It's weird. Now he did heal his arm, and he can actually heal from multiple gunshot wounds within seconds. That's pretty impressive. He's also as strong as Spider-Man, lifting 12 tons in his reptile form. One of the reasons why I included the healing factor in the lore is because we're going to be focusing on resurrecting him because we're doing an aristocrat style. So we sacrifice, resurrect, sacrifice, resurrect. So Nim, Death Mantle, and Resurrection Orb are 2 cards we really want. They're both 2 mana artifact equipment, but Nim Death Mantle says equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Intimidate and is a black zombie. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you can pay 4, and if you do, you return that card to the battlefield and attach Nim Death Mantle to it. And it's equipped 4. Then you got Resurrection Orb. It says equipped creature has lifelink. Love that. And then when a equipped creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, and it's equipped 4. So Nim Death Mantle, you do have to pay 4 to resurrect them, but you get it instantly. And then Resurrection Orb, you don't have to pay anything, but you get it at the end step. So, but both are good. Now, like I said, we're going to be sacrificing them. I love that Nim Death Mantle makes them zombies. It's the only way I'll probably get Marvel zombies in Magic, I guess. They did not make a zombie Spider-Man in this set for some reason. He's an alternate reality Spider-Man. He should have been included. Probably one of the best, and it's actually a symmetrical effect, is Lifeline. It's a 5 mana artifact. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard and a creature is in play, return that creature from your graveyard to play at end of turn. So, if you have a creature in play, you just bring everything that dies back, and so does your opponent. Keep that in mind. That's a pretty powerful ability. Now, Elvish Regrower kind of effect. You've of course seen Eternal Witness and Timeless Witness. There's actually a lot of cards, especially ETB cards, that do that. Elvish Regrower is one of them. He's a 4 mana green creature, Elf Druid. When this creature enters, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and it's a 4/3. So you're going to be doing not really a lot of blinking, but you're going to be sacrificing and bringing things back. So you want that ETB trigger. Green is not the greatest at getting certain artifacts out. Most of the stuff that recurs things in this deck that without having to like cast something is artifacts. So how are we going to get it? There's a few ways to get it, but one thing green does well is get non-basic lands out. Inventor's Fair is a legendary land. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain a life. Then you can tap it for colors, or you can pay 4, tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You can only activate if you have 3 or more artifacts. So there's a decent chunk of artifacts in this deck. So you're going to play Sylvan Scrying effects to get this Inventor's Fair, and then play and hopefully tutor for your Nim Death Mantle if you want Resurrection or a Lifeline, whichever one. Then you got stuff like Kura the Boundless Sky. It's a 5 mana green legendary creature, Dragon Spirit, has flying and death touch. And when it dies, you choose one of its abilities. You either search a library for 3 land cards, reveal them, and put into your hand, then shuffle, or you create an XX green spirit creature token, where X is the number of lands you control. It's a 4/4. So we are an aristocrat style deck, so this is going to die pretty quick, and it can help us tutor for Inventor's Fair or any land we really need. There are a bunch of sacrifice outlets in green, believe it or not. You got Perilous Forays. It's a 5 mana green enchantment. You pay 1, you sack a creature, you search your library for a land card with a basic land type, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. That's right, it's not a basic land, it's a basic land type. So you can actually get Shock Land. This is actually a really good card. So you sacrifice your lizard, you bring it back, and you get a land while you do it. Then you can do a lot of birthing pod effects. I only put birthing ritual in here. I didn't do the pod yet. But is a 2 mana green enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature, look at the top 7 cards of your library. Then you may sacrifice a creature. And if you do, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from among those cards onto the battlefield, where X is 1 plus the sacrifice creature's mana value. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, if you sacrifice your commander, which is a 5, you can get anything 6 or below, which is a majority of your creatures. And you're going to have a fair amount of creatures in here, so you're always going to hit something with that. So, of course, our commander coming back and turning things into lizards is why we're doing this. But that doesn't mean we can't throw other aristocrat death trigger effects in here. One of my favorites that came from the original Innistrad is Gutter Grime. It's a 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you put a slime counter on Gutter Grime. Then you put an ooze creature token onto the battlefield with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of slime counters on Gutter Grime. So you keep sacrificing your lizard, you're going to get more and more counters. And as you grow, as you have more deaths, the oozes, all of them not only grow in number, but grow in power and toughness. So that's really cool. Then a card I've literally never seen played in a Commander game, and it actually came in the 2013 pre-con, is Foster. It's a 4 mana green enchantment. When a creature card you control dies, you may pay 1. And if you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, put that card into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. So it can mill things, which is cool. However, every time you sacrifice your lizard, you can pay 1 and essentially draw a card, draw a creature from the top of your library. So it's card advantage, it's pretty good. One card that probably is pretty similar, but probably power crept faster out of Commander, is Spinner of Souls. It's a 3 mana green spider spirit, has reach, and when another non token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library and to reveal a creature card. You put that card in your hand and the rest on the bottom in a random order. And he's a 4/3. So every time you're sacrificing your lizard, you're netting one creature into your hand. And then you got Ulvenwald Observer. It's a 6 mana green tree folk. It says whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, you draw the card. It's a 6/6. Now, obviously, this is meant for a tree folk style deck because they usually have high toughness, but our commander will have 5 toughness. So, bang, bada, boom. Every time you sacrifice him, you're going to draw. There's a lot of good green cards that draw when creatures either die or enter the battlefield, so draw is not going to be an issue for this deck. Another quick lore tidbit. I saw this a while back, and I just thought you guys need to see this. So, Connors, the lizard, believes he has achieved the next stage of human evolution and aims to transform all humanity into lizards, which is the flavor of his card. He's turning things into 4/4 lizards. Now, there's this funny scan. I don't know if you're looking at the screen or not, but I'll read it to you. It's Spider-Man talking to this dude that turned himself into a dinosaur, and he's trying to turn other people into dinosaurs. So Spider-Man says to him, "You can rewrite DNA on the fly, and you're using it to turn people into dinosaurs. But with tech like that, you could cure cancer." And then the dinosaur says, "But I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs." So that was the first strategy for Lizard. And of course, all deck lists will be down in the description, of course. I had a second deck I made with Lizard that focuses more on blinking him or returning him from your field to your hand and recasting him or cheating him out with I call them Quicksilver Amulet effects, but I don't think they have an official title. Quicksilver Amulet is just the first effect I used that had it. So okay, so Conjurer's Closet is an obvious for a blink deck. It's a colorless. It works in any kind of blink. So does Panharmonicon. I don't think I need to go over those, but for reference, it's there for you. As I said, blinking, not a thing green does pretty well. However, they do return things to their hand all the time. First Responder and Stampeding Suro are examples. So, First Responder is a 4 mana green creature. It's an ogre citizen. As vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand, then put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that creature's power on First Responder. And it's a 3/3. That's a pretty powerful ability. It also boosts him, so that's cool. But sometimes it was a way to it was a negative side on a card. So like Stampede and Suro is a 4 mana creature beast as trample. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you return a green creature you control to its owner's hand. It's a 5/4. So they made that ability on this card because 5/4 for 4 and a trample was a really good rate. So they put a downside on it. So you had to pay that downside to keep that around. But nowadays, a 4 mana 5/4 with trample is the standard. A few more cards that return things to from the field to the hand. Spider-Man Brooklyn Visionary. It's a 5 mana legendary creature, Spider Human Hero. As web slinging for 3. And then, if you don't know, by the way, web slinging is an ability that says you may cast a spell for 3 if you return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. Whatever the web slinging costs, that's sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 6. Now, whenever Spider-Man enters, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle and stuff 4/3. So basically, return something and mana ramps you for 3 mana, so that's pretty good. You got Erratic Portal. It's a colorless option. It's a 4 mana artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, return target creature to its owner's hand unless its controller pays 1. So you can choose your own thing and then decide not to pay the 1, returning it back to your hand. It's a pretty good repeatable way to return things. The secret theme is power creep in this deck, actually. It's not aristocrats, it's power creep. Because it has all the power creep. Ovia Automech Artisan is actually a very power crept version of Elvish Piper. And even back, Elvish Piper used to be like a broken card. At least when I was a kid, I was like, dang, this card's so broken. 1 mana. Anyway, it's a 4 mana green legendary creature, human artificer. It says each creature that's attacking one of your opponents has trample. Then you pay a green, tap it. You may put a creature or vehicle card from your hand onto the battlefield. And if you put an artifact onto the battlefield this way, put 2 counters on it, +1/+1 counters. It's a 1/2. So it's cheating out because we're not going to be paying like some nerd. We're not going to be paying actual cost for our creatures. Heck no, we don't do that around here. And speaking of cheating costs for creatures, Kodama of the East Tree does it perfectly. He's a 6 mana green legendary creature spirit, has reach, and whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. It has partner. It's a 6/6. You guys have all probably seen this card. Essentially, we'll be able to cheat out almost anything along with our lizard here because he's a 5 man. Most things in this deck are less than 5 mana, and most of them are permanents. In the final way, you could do kind of a blink style, is actually making copies. So you can go that route. And there's actually a lot of good green ways to make copies of creatures. You got Bramble Sovereign. It's a 4 mana green creature dryad. Whenever another non token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. And if you do, that creature's controller creates a token that's a copy of that creature. It's a 4/4. So I will specify this technically doesn't say a creature you control. So this could be symmetrical, but you do have to pay it. You have to pay it, not the opponent. So it's a really cool way to copy it. Now, one thing I remember back in the day, acidic slime was essentially an auto include in every deck because it destroys an artifact, enchantment, or a land. So it's all those rolled into one and it has a death touch. So it was always included in this deck. It's really good. You'd be okay. Don't be the one that destroys everyone's lands, no matter how tempting it is. Don't be the villain. Be the hero. But if they have a problem, if they have Maze of It or Glacial Chasm, bang bada boom, blink acidic slime a couple of times and teach them a lesson. So this next deck is around Jackal, Genius Geneticist. And I think his flavor is 100% on point, and we'll get into it, okay? He is a 2 mana Simic legendary creature, human scientist villain. He has trample, and whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value equal to his power, copy that spell, except the copy isn't legendary. Then you put a +1/+1 counter on Jackal, and he's a 1/1. Okay, so it's wanting us to have almost like a tier of different mana values, like some one, some two, some three, some fours, and continue. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like a birthing pod deck. So we're actually going to be doing some birthing pod style stuff in this deck. Also, maybe I have only 3 CMC cards in my hand and he's at 2. What do I do? In this deck, you will be adding and subtracting counters like crazy. What if he's at 4 and you only have 3? There's going to be a lot of ways to remove counters so you still get that ability to trigger. We're going to really be editing his genes to benefit whatever scenario we're in. The Jackal was originally one of Spider-Man's less popular rogues, kind of in the background in those side issues. However, he rose to prominence after being one of the first in the Marvel Universe to master cloning technology and creating various clones of Spider-Man, like the Scarlet Spiders, Ben Riley, and Kane Parker, which both have cards in this set, by the way, as well as other characters, including himself and the Chimera Spider Girl. Yeah, they made a Chimera Spider Girl. Now, his experience went on to play in major roles in several popular Spider Man storylines that you can check out, such as the Clone Saga, which is one of the more popular ones, Spider Island, and Dead No More, the Clone Conspiracy. Check those out if you like. I'm sure I don't need to go over birthing pod effects with you, but let's briefly talk about it. There's various ways in Magic to do the birthing pod style effects. You got birthing pod, of course, and then you got prime speaker Vanifar. So essentially how it works is you tap the thing. Sometimes for birthing pod you have to pay 2 mana. For prime speaker you don't have to pay anything. you sacrifice a creature. Then you search your library for a creature with CMC equal to +1. So if you sacrifice a 3, you look for a 4. If you sacrifice a 4, you look for a 5. And it kind of lets you go on and on and on. And you can only do them as sorceries because they're really powerful abilities. So the way I built this deck is I had it almost like I actually wrote down the numbers. So obviously you're going to have more threes than anything, but it's evenly distributed. So your twos and fours are pretty even, and your ones and fives are pretty even, and you got a few sixes, 1 7, 1 8, 1 9, and of course, Jackal is a clone, so a lot of them are clones. A lot of them are just utility creatures. What if you need some removal? Okay, you have a couple options for that, and so on and so forth. The color scheme of Jackal is really good and really on point, in my opinion, because in Magic, Simics are often biomancers. They're not always trying to get lands. I don't know how many Simic commanders you see that are land tribal, essentially. In the Simic Guild, they don't care about land. What they care about is genetic modification to power things up, also known as biomancy, which is what the Jackal does. Now, and this is probably getting into the weeds, but in lore, biomancy is represented in mechanics through +1/+1 counters. That's why you often see the Simic Guild doing that. But also, the Simic Guild, I don't know if everyone's noticed, or maybe it's just me. They just throw crab hands on people and tentacles on people, and that boosts them. I don't know if crab hands are that powerful, but you'll just see like every other Simic Guild card has an elf with a crab hand on it. Anyway, the best example of biomancy, in my opinion, and what I kind of like added to this deck just for a theme, is Master Biomancer. He's a 4 mana Simic creature elf wizard. He doesn't have a crab arm, unfortunately. However, he says when each other creature you control enters the battlefield, it enters with +1/+1 counters equal to his power. And there's a lot of cards. I only fit 8 on the screen, but there's way more cards that do that, where something will enter with counters on it. Arwen, Weaver of Hope, is another example you've probably seen. She's a 3 mana legendary creature, elf noble. And then each creature enters with counters on it equal to her toughness. I'll just go through the rest real quick. Some have additional abilities, but let's only focus on the counters. Renata, Thunderous, Velocipede, and Tramiel, Seymour's Butler are creatures that have creatures you control come in with +1/+1 counters, but only one. Master Chef does the same thing, but it's a background enchantment. Bioengineered Future is also an enchantment, but it has them enter with a counter for each land that entered your control this turn. Communal Brewing is an enchantment that has creatures you cast enter with up to 4 counters, +1/+1 counters on them. So they all do various things, but those are the main. Like I said, Master Biomancer is probably the best because you can just boost Master Biomancer so your creatures will actually come in with even more counters. Jackal was in the Clone Saga. He was the first person to master clone technology in the Marvel Universe. So you know we are including some clones in this deck. And since this is a birthing pod style thing, we spread out the CMC. Most clones hover around 4 mana, but they also range from 2 to 9. There's actually no clone that, or in this color pairing anyway, that is 8 CMC. Now, Deceptive Frostkite has flying and enters as a copy of a creature with power 4 or greater that you control, except it's also a dragon. Glasspool Mimic is a 3 CMC that enters as a copy of a creature you control and also is a land. Chameleon Master of Disguise is a 4 CMC clone of any creature you control, except it keeps the name Chameleon Master of Disguise, skirting the legend rule. Moray of Frost is a 5 CMC clone that can copy any permanent you control, but is also a legendary snow permanent with changeling and gets counters if it's a creature. 2+1/+1 counters if it's a creature. Aton Soldier is a 6 CMC clone that is also non-legendary artifact copy of something of any creature on the field, and it gains Myriad. Quicksilver Gargantuan is a 7 CMC creature. It comes in as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it stays a 7/7. Hulking Metamorph is a 9 mana artifact clone. It comes in as a copy of any creature or artifact on the field, and it can actually be cast for 4 mana as well, but it's a 3/3 if it does. So, uh, there's so many options for clones in this deck. Okay, you got a lot of counters on creatures, maybe even some on your commander. Now you want to manipulate the counters to get the triggered abilities you want, or maybe you just want to overrun your opponent. Simic has you covered. There are dozens of ways to do this. A funny one that I really like that's actually a creature that you can birthing pod into is Galloping Lizrog. It's a 5 mana Simic creature, frog lizard, of course, has trample. When it ETBs, you may remove any number of +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control, and if you do, you put twice that many +1/+1 counters on Galloping Lizrog, and he's 3/3. So if your commander has 4 counters on it and you want them to go back to 1 to copy abilities, you go ahead, remove all 4. This guy gets 8. And it says you may remove any number. So if you have a bunch of threes in your hand, your commander has 4 counters on it, making him a 5. You just remove 2, making him a 3. Bing, bada, boom. Now, another cool card is Ooze Flux. I really like these Ooze cards today. It's a 4 mana green enchantment. You can pay to remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. Put an XX green Ooze creature token onto the battlefield, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters removed this way. So it's also removing all the counters that you want from among creatures you control. Now, it doesn't remove 1 or more, so you get to choose how many. There's other cards like Nesting Grounds. It's a land that removes counters. You got Power Conduit. There's so many options. Or mana package in this deck is usually mana dorks. Because let's say you play an Elvish Mystic and have a few creatures that say creatures enter with +1/+1. Yeah, that's a 1 mana 3/3 or 1 mana 4/4 that can tap for mana. Another thing is having creatures who tap for mana equal to their power. Kami of Whispered Hopes is one you're probably familiar with. He not only does that, but he also will add an additional +1/+1 counter when you put counters on something. And then Heron Blade Elite does the same thing. It taps equal to its power, also has vigilance, and gets boosted every time a human comes into play, which there's plenty of. I think your commander's even a human. The draw package in this deck is also going to be pretty good. Danny Pink is probably it's at first when it was printed, no one really paid attention, but now it's like a $20 card. Everyone wants this card. It's a 4 mana legendary creature, human soldier advisor. It has mentor, and then creatures you control have. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on this creature for the first time each turn, draw a card. And it's a 4/3. So every time you're putting counters on things, bang bada boom. And now when just for a rules clarification, when creatures enter with counters, you can picture it in your head as them entering and then immediately getting those counters. So they are put onto the creature. So Danny Pink will trigger for that. Now, Sage of Fables has an effect that's actually, there's like 4 or 5 in the deck that do something similar. It is a 3 mana blue creature, Merfolk Wizard. Whenever another wizard creature you control enters the battlefield, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. But this ability right here, pay 2, remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control, draw a card. It's a 2/2. So this ability, like I said, there's 4 or 5 in the deck, and it's really good because not only does it draw you cards, which you always want, it also will manipulate the counters on your commander. That way you always get its triggered ability. These are 2 cards that don't really fit in any other category, but they're just so cool. Maybe Clam of Us is a good finisher. It's a 5 mana green human Tyranid Artificer. Each creature you control gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on it. It's a 3/3. And your +1/+1 counters are going to start stacking up pretty good. So this will boost them significantly. And then, of course, my favorite is a Fog. It's Spike Weaver. He is a 4 mana green creature, Spike. Spike Weaver enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 2, remove a +1/+1 counter from Spike Weaver, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You can pay 1, remove a +1/+1 counter from Spike Weaver, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So hopefully this guy will have a a bunch of +1/+1 counters on him, so you'll never take damage again. Protect Spike Weaver with your life. This next deck is built around Dr. Octopus Master Planner. One thing I think they did pretty well in this set and other sets that have like a universe beyond theme and some in universe, I guess, with the Brothers War is they take a character and make multiple cards with it. That way you can see different aspects of that character. However, for Doc Ock, they actually made 2 cards, which we'll go over, named Doc Ock, but then they give this guy Dr. Octopus. Which is it? Are we going to abbreviate his name? Or are we not going to abbreviate his name? Whatever. Anyway, so this deck is based around his last ability. So let's get into it. It's a 7 mana Dimir legendary creature, human scientist villain. Other villains you control get +2/+2. Your maximum hand size is 8. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you have fewer than 8 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. And he's a 4/8. So at first, I built this deck around the villains because I love the villains of Spider-Man. I just wanted a Sinister Sticks kind of deck. However, his last ability is just like Damia. If you know her, she's a, I believe, Sultai Gorgon that draws you up to 7. He draws you up to 8. So one thing we're doing with this is we're going to be discarding our hand constantly so we can just refill it with 8 new fresh cards. We are still going to keep a villain sub theme to beat face with that +2/+2. That's pretty powerful right there. Doc Ock led the original team of the Sinister Six. The tentacles that he has attached to himself, you probably saw in the movie, drove him insane, making him act in a villainous way. His intelligence is his main weapon, however. He was once called by the smartest man in the multiverse, although it's debated who's the smartest in Marvel, but Reed Richards. He was actually called by Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four to offer his expertise when Invisible Woman suffered from complications during her second pregnancy as a result of the cosmic radiation that had given them their powers. You got to know, Doctor Doom, who is probably the second smartest, he could probably do anything, was probably fuming when they called Dr. Octopus instead of Doctor Doom. Both are doctors, okay, but still, come on. Doc Ock got a lot of love in this set for some reason. There's actually, I think, 4 Doc Ocks if you count Superior Spider-Man, which is Doc Ock in Spider-Man's body. Now, you don't have to include these. I did it for flavor, but if you want to optimize the deck, you can cut these. There's Doc Ock, Evil Inventor. He's a 7 mana Dimir legendary creature, human scientist villain. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target non-creature artifact you control becomes an 8/8 robot villain artifact creature in addition to its other types, and it's an 8/8. We will be having a lot of artifacts in here. A lot of our mana are mana rocks. So this just turns any mana rock into an 8/8, which is great. Then Doc Ock, Sinister Scientist, is a 5 mana blue legendary creature human scientist villain. As long as there are 8 or more cards in your graveyard, Doc Ock has base power and toughness 8/8. And then as long as you have a villain or another villain, Doc Ock has hexproof and it's a 4/5. So just off the bat, there's too many scientists on in this video. I think every single commander is a scientist in this video. Anyway, so it fits the villain. It fits the Doc Ock theme. That's why I'm putting it in there. Doesn't help with that last ability. Although Doc Ock is going to be pretty big because you're going to have at least 8 cards in the graveyard because hopefully you'll be discarding them. But other than that, it's more for just flavor. Superior Spider-Man is also Doc Ock, like I said, in Spider-Man's body. He's a 4 mana Demi legendary creature, spider human hero. You may have him enter as a copy of any creature in a graveyard, except his name is Superior Spider-Man, and he's a 4/4 Spider Human Hero in addition to his other types. When you do, exile that card, and it's a 4/4. Then you got Lady Octopus, Inspired Inventor. It's a 1 mana blue legendary creature, human scientist villain, and it says whenever you draw your first or second card each turn, put an Ingenuity counter on Lady Octopus. Then you can tap her. You may cast an artifact spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the number of Ingenuity counters on Lady Octopus without paying its mana cost. It's a 0/2. So I actually almost built around this. That is a very powerful ability. And like I said, we're going to have plenty of artifacts. When I was playtesting this deck on Tapped Out, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. I was literally tapping her every turn to put something in play for free. So of course we're going to be throwing Doc Ock's Tentacles in here. It's a 1 mana artifact equipment. Whenever a creature you control with mana value 5 or greater enters, you may attach this equipment to it. Equipped creature gets +4/+4 and has equip for 5. You could also put Behold the Sinister 6. It's a 7 mana black sorcery. Return up to 6 target creature cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that's, first of all, flavors on point, of course. But second of all, we're going to be discarding our hand all the time, hopefully. So our graveyard will be filled. So we'll hopefully easily have 6 creatures in our graveyard. And we are going to have, I think, like 15 villains in this deck. So Mysterio, Master of Illusion, I just kind of threw in here because he's actually pretty good. He's a 4 mana legendary creature, human villain. When he enters, create a 3/3 blue illusion villain creature token for each non-token villain you control. And then exile those tokens when Mysterio leaves the battlefield and it's a 3/3. Now, that's really cool flavor because he's actually so good at making illusions in the comics. He once made a whole like city illusion that the Avengers fell for, and he can actually make his illusions physical, and they can, so you can interact them. You just don't phase through an illusion building of his. Now, one thing you could do in here is put in cards with villainous choice because it fits the villain theme. You obviously don't have to, but I just thought it was flavorful. And some of them are actually pretty good, like Great Intelligence Plan. It's a 4 mana Demir sorcery. You draw 3 cards, and then target opponent faces a villainous choice. They either discard 3 cards, or you may cast a card from your hand without paying its mana cost. Now let's get into the cards that will really be using that last Doc Ock ability. You got Thought Gorger and Diamond Lion. Both will discard your hands. So Thought Gorger is a 4 mana black creature horror, has trample, and when it ETBs, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each card in your hand, and if you do, discard your hand. And then when he leaves the battlefield, you draw the card for each +1/+1 counter on him, and he's a 2/2. So he's going to be pretty good. Even if you have 8 cards in hand, he becomes a 10/10. And at the end of the turn, you get all those cards back. And if he dies, you get all those cards back anyway. So it's a double whammy here. Then you got Diamond Lion. Now, this card I really like because obviously it's based around Lion's Eye Diamond, but I have yet to use it in a deck. This could be the deck for it. It's a 2 mana artifact creature cat. You tap it, you discard your hand, you sacrifice it, and then you add 3 mana of any one color. Activate only as an instant, and it's a 2/2. There's actually going to be a lot of mana ramp that's ritual like because you want to empty your hand as fast as possible to refill it, like Dark Ritual, of course. Diamond Lion is a good example of this as well. It's quick mana, temporary mana, and it also discards your hand. If you are going to put any one card in this deck, let it be Insidious Dreams. It's a 4 mana black instant. As an additional cost to play this card, discard X cards from your hand, then you search your library for X cards, then shuffle, and then you put those on top in any order. So this is like a Grim Tutor that discards your hand. So let me set up the field for you. You got your commander out. You got 8 cards in hand. You play Insidious Dreams. You discard 7 cards. You search the library for 7 cards. You put all 7 cards on top of your library. End of turn, you draw 8 cards. So you draw all 7 plus 1. Bang, bada, boom. You just set up the perfect hand, hopefully. And speaking of setting up, this isn't as good, but it's almost as good. You got Behold the Beyond. It's a 7 mana sorcery. It says discard your hand, search your library for 3 cards, and put those cards in your hand, then shuffle your library. So we want to discard. So this is essentially discard your hand, look for 3 cards, and draw 5 cards. So it's an amazing card. You can even play the most infamous bad card, people say, One with Nothing. It's a black 1 mana instant. It just says discard your hand. And so basically, how you want to play this is your commander's out. When your commander's trigger goes on the stack to draw cards, you want to cast this in response. You don't want to just do this willy nilly because what if your opponent kills your commander? So keep that in mind. Then you got Tarian's Journal. It is a 2 mana black legendary artifact. You tap it, you sacrifice another artifact or creature, you draw the card, activate only as a sorcery. Then you can pay to tap it, discard your hand to transform it. And it actually transforms into a land that reanimates stuff from your graveyard. So that's pretty good. But we really like that discard your hand because this is essentially pay to tap it, draw 8 cards. For game enders, you have a lot of options. I went with benefits from discard and drawing route. Everyone knows psychosis crawler kind of effects. Well, what about Feast of Sanity? It's a 4 mana black enchantment. Whenever you discard a card, Feast of Sanity deals 1 damage to any target and you gain a life. So this can snipe creatures and this can also snipe your opponents. Put this, I know, and this is considered damage, not draining and gaining. So if you are playing like a Rakdos discard with damage doublers, this will do some work. Then you got stuff like Sphinx's Tutelage. It's a 3 mana blue enchantment. Whenever you draw the card, target opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. If they're both non-land cards that share a color, repeat this process. Then you can pay 6 to draw a card and discard a card. So hopefully you'll be drawing 8 cards a turn. So at a minimum, this will mill someone 16, but hopefully more. And that's essentially the deck. It almost reminds me of like wheeling with a few extra steps. So when you put in cards, think of it like that. So for this deck, I will say it's probably not the most unique way to go about him. So what I wanted to point out for this card, let me just read it and then I'll explain. The Spot Living Portal is a 5 mana Orzhov legendary creature, human scientist villain. When he enters, you exile up to 1 target non-land permanent and up to 1 target non-land permanent card from a graveyard. And then when he dies, you put him on the bottom of his owner's library, and if you do, return the exile cards to their owner's hand. It's a 4/4. So, few things. One, this targets any non-land permanent on the field, not just your own. And it says when he dies, so if you blink him, they just never get their stuff back, assuming you're targeting their stuff. Also, you don't if he's your commander, you don't have to put him on the bottom of your library. It's essentially a choice you have to make. So, um it's essentially a May ability. So even if he does die, they may not even get their stuff back. It is just the brutal, and I call this deck spot removal. You got to respect a good pun when you see it. Now, Spot is an interesting villain. His spots lead to an alternate dimension known as Spot World. He can travel in different areas or dimensions with his spots with no limit. Now, one of his attacks is to surround his opponent with his spots and then punch and kick them via the portals, which to me is silly because he has 0 super strength. If I were him, I'd find a dimension that has strength boosting. There's a lot of them. I mean, look at the super soldier serum or something. Because he is technically also immortal. He can't die, he doesn't age. You can't be having weak strength as an immortal. You need to step it, you need to step your game up, Spot. But he can negate Spider-Man's spider sense with his portals, because if he surrounds them, his spider sense will go off, of course, but he doesn't know where he's coming from. And although this deck it probably isn't the most unique, everyone's going to be blinking this guy, I assume. However, this gives me an opportunity to talk about a thing I've always believed. So, Eerie Interlude is a 3 mana white instant. You exile any number of target creatures you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. I love effects like these. I use them as protection usually. So, if someone board wipes, I use this to protect my field. I've done it so many times. I know nowadays they got stuff like Dawn's Charm and all that stuff. Very few things protect you from a Farewell, one of the most popular white cards. That card is just brutal to face. Now, you also probably want repeatable instant speed, blink, Eldrazi Displacer. It's great for this. It's a 3 mana white Eldrazi. Well, it's technically not a white, it's devoid, so it has no color, but it has white in the mana cost. You pay 3, including 1 colorless. You exile another target creature, then return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Now, you want to make sure you put colorless sources in your deck for this because I've played this and then not had the color sources to do it. You need the colorless sources to do his ability. Now, one card I really love from Foundations that you could include in this deck is Abyssal Harvester. It's a 3 mana black creature, demon warlock, which is I'm always a warlock in D&D. I don't know if you could tell by my love for horror and demons, but you can tap them to exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. Then exile all other nightmare tokens you control. It's a 3/2. So if your spot does go to the graveyard, you can bring it back, or you can just bring back anything that you want. I really like this guy. I wish he was legendary though. Neva stalked by nightmares. I did not purposely put this on a slide with someone who makes nightmare tokens, but it's a happy little accident. It's a 4 mana Orzhov legendary creature human noble. Has menace, and when it enters the battlefield, return target creature or enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, then scry one into 2/2. So it's just a cool blink target that constantly can recur things. I really like it. I just like the flavor of it as well. I probably don't need to sell you on these two cards. They're pretty obvious includes, but I just love them and I love their flavor. So Ketramos, the new Dawn, has really cool lore, by the way. I can't wait to get to Amonkhet to talk about it. It's a 3 mana Orzhov legendary creature god. Has menace, lifelink, and indestructible. He can't attack or block unless there are 7 or more cards in exile, which you'll have plenty thanks to your commander. Then whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. It's a 4/4. So it does make you lose life, but it has lifelink, and most importantly, it's drawing you cards, but only during your turn. So it's going to be great every time you play a flicker effect. You're just going to get card advantage. Then you got Preston the Vanisher. It's a 4 mana white legendary creature, rabbit wizard. Whenever another non token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 0/1 white illusion. You can pay 2, sacrifice 5 illusions, exile target non land permanent into 2/5. So this includes any of your creatures. However, it does not say the tokens are non-legendary, so your spot will automatically die. But you never put tokens on the bottom of your library, so you'll be fine. You will be removing and controlling the board with this stack. I have a feeling this commander will be considered toxic. So keep that in mind. Like I said, this is the Friday that all of this has been revealed. So who knows where the dice will fall for it, but keep that in mind. Thank you so much for watching until the end of the video. YouTube will probably pop up something on the screen if you want to look at more decks. Go ahead, check those out. Hit subscribe if you'd like. But comment down below how you feel about the Spider-Man set. Is it something you're going to be buying? Are you a comic fan? How do you think they did? Like I said earlier, I don't think they did a great job. Hopefully, the Marvel sets in the future have better cards, have better flavor. But until next time, guys, I'll see you.